Now, Alan, we were together on Friday night at a big event marking the second anniversary of the Together Declaration, and that was all about, people working together to try, get kids back to school, get businesses up and running, get our freedoms back. You've moved on to lots of other things, fighting ULEZ, fighting low traffic neighbourhoods, and all the rest of it, fighting, central bank digital currencies, you name it. The idea is that people work together to get ordinary people represented. There was certainly a feeling, wasn't there, when we go back to the early months of 2020, that the people, when you look back at it now, that the people's needs and wants weren't being represented, other than those who were terrified, screaming, do something, the government did something, and we're all left to pay the cost of that. What do you think the COVID inquiry is going to actually uncover that we don't already know?
Well, hopefully what the COVID inquiry do with due diligence, explore, was it a sensible, rational policy in the first place? We heard the word unprecedented many times, but this was the first time ever that this had been done, I think, except for one tiny little trial ever in the world, and it was done in so many places. And many people at the time who talked about evidence-based medicine and talked about children and talked about the impacts on jobs and the economy and families all said that if you do a lockdown for everybody, you don't just shield the very particularly vulnerable, then there are going to be huge ramifications. It was spelled out at the time, and they were smeared, they were ignored, and we were told that, we were wanting to kill granny, we were irresponsible. And so what the COVID inquiry, unfortunately, it seems like some of its terms of reference are, should the lockdown have happened sooner and for longer? And I think there has to be, if we're going to have a proper scrutiny of what's happened and of the decisions made by policymakers, it has to be, was this a sensible policy at any time in any way? Yeah. Should this ever have been done? And that's got to be the starting point. And then how can we make sure that we never have something like this again, and that we always have a cost-benefit analysis, a proper assessment, basically what any pandemic preparedness strategy would say, which was jettisoned. And it really, I think, is very important, Julia, that this gets handled properly, because some people are already saying, let's, get ready for the next one.
Yeah, that's it. And whenever people talk about how, why are you still banging on about this, Julia? It's over and done with. It'll never happen again. They're already talking about the next one and what we're going to do. And the COVID inquiry that's going to go on for many, many years, we're not going to get the result, even if it's looking at the right things, which you and I wanted to do, which is whether we should lock down in the first place. When we may have a pandemic, a genuine, another pandemic before then. This is the key thing, is we know from the leak of Matt Hancock's WhatsApps, although we don't have March 2020, that's the 1 month we don't have, interestingly, when everything in government policy just turned on a tuppence. But from what we've seen is government decisions were made by WhatsApp in little groups, little coterie of ministers. Cabinet ministers barely had a look in. Scientists offering a different point of view were totally ignored and just decried. The policy changed from following pre-pandemic planning, which was what Sweden actually did, to, at the stroke of a pen from Dominic Cummings, the Prime Minister's then most trusted aide, to locking down. But we were told, were we not, that this was too flat on the curve. It was for 3 weeks. And then months and months later, we still did not have our freedoms back and didn't get them back fully until 2 years later. And there was never any evidence for this other than Neil Ferguson's absurd computer model prediction that we were going to lose, 500,000 people. He's made many, many predictions of other diseases over the years. He's been wrong by a huge factor every single time. And yet, this one man, basically, meant we dropped every single aspect of pre-pandemic planning in this country. And a few frightened middle-aged men with their phones on WhatsApp decided to lock us all down and steal away our freedoms and ruin our economy, our healthcare system, our education system, our society, in one fell swoop. I don't have any faith that the COVID inquiry is going to really get to grips with that. Do you?
I'm sceptical. I'd like to say that I would hope for the best. I would also say that it was a few of those people who did it, but it was also, they did a U-turn. There was a clambering by some people very vocally on social media and elsewhere, saying that they were being irresponsible, talking about herd immunity, irresponsible, talking about the types of things that people know when they talk about pandemics are important, and to consider a range of variables like children, like the economy. I don't know how people think the NHS is paid for,
Yeah.
but you know, we pay for it, and we need a thriving economy in order to make that happen. And so there was a segment in society who put enormous pressure on as well. But the people that were running things, as are now, are often weak authoritarians. They are lacking in some commitment and principle, and even despite having a huge mandate, we're still nervous. So I think it really means that now moving forwards, and that's what the Together Association is doing, and we'd invite all your viewers and the public to get involved, is to make sure that the public is front and centre for decisions. Public Health Act is still here with us. We need to make sure that that is not used. That was the thing that was used to shut us down before lockdown, and that we need to make sure that cost-benefit analysis and honesty and transparency is there, not fear and nudge and modelling that is not based on reality. And that's why we need to make sure that, you know, all of us have our voices and we do it together.